time.
Greetings and welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm speaking with writer Shawn Pryor. I've known Shawn for quite a few years, and he is without a doubt one of the nicest and most generous and most driven creators I have ever met. Shawn and I have a great discussion about his current Kickstarter for his racing action transporter inspired series Ignition. We talk about how using Kickstarter for single issue comics can be really beneficial these days, about working with collaborators and how to empower them with creating the best work that they can with a project that is coming from your gut and your passion. We discussed the life-changing balm that is caramel mocha coffee. We also have a little discussion about what Busta Rhymes and Metallica have in common, and just like a whole ton more. So, let's start the engines and gear up with Shawn Pryor. Yes, that was terrible, and I make no apologies for it. Let's go. Alright, Shawn, I've known you for quite a few years at this point. You're like one of the first professionals I've ever had any type of friendship with. And I have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, but first and foremost, you have a really cool Kickstarter going on right now for the awesome racing action adventure comic Ignition. Could you tell us a little bit about that before we start rolling on to the other stuff?
Oh yeah, Don, no problem at all. Like Ignition, what Ignition it's about a disgraced race car driver by the name of Jamel Reed, and she was like this hot shot, rookie on the racing circuit until a tragic situation got her banned from racing for life, and so now her life has fallen apart, and she is looking to try to find new ways to keep her life together, and on the low, she does transporter jobs to make ends meet. And she ends up taking a job that will essentially change her life forever. And taking an unknown client that's not in her records, because she has a special person to handle all of her transporter jobs. And this person is outside of that circuit. And she ends up taking a mysterious person and some mysterious cargo. Sorry, get tongue-tied. Mysterious cargo across country, and it's full of adventure, excitement, drama, some sci-fi elements, danger, you name it, it has it. It's created by me, also Jenilyn Wright and Kelly Guillory.
And I can say I, supported and backed the Kickstarter for the first issue, and I really enjoyed it. If you're a fan of anything, like you guys mentioned, the Transporter or the Fast and Furious type movies,
Mm-hmm.
This is really, gearing up to be something in that vein. And the cool thing about your Kickstarter now is if you missed the first one, you could still get the first issue while backing the second issue as well.
Oh, yeah.
And, I really like the concept, what you're going here. I really like the characters. The art's awesome. And I was actually kind of wondering, I've been seeing this a lot lately, and it's, Kickstarter backing single issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a few years ago, maybe even a couple years ago, that was considered kind of like a big, red flag for Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But I think in this past year, especially with the pandemic and all of that, people just kind of embraced that concept. And there's a lot of success happening with, first issues getting funded and then coming back for the second issues and the third issues. And is that something you've always planned for this? Or is it more like, let's just kind of see what happens with the first issue and see if we get picked up with a publisher? Or was it just like, we've got, some support for this first issue, let's keep rolling with the second, third, and so on and so forth?
It was always going to be let's kickstart each issue separately. And reasons why for me is because it helps keep the Kickstarter total at a nice, fair goal. Even though I've been doing comic books and writing and creating and, working in all different types of creative fields for over 13 years, I'm still in that stage professionally where like folks know me, but folks still don't know me. So like it's difficult for me to say, hey, how about if we just try to get $16,000 right now? That would be that would be a major stretch for me. But 4,000, however, um, $4,000, however, is more reasonable. $5,000 is more reasonable, and so by doing it per issue, it just gives me a better chance to make sure that every single issue is made. I can worry about where this goes with the publisher later. I can worry about that later. I won't. That's not really my big concern at this time. And I think the reason why is because like this is a story that like I've always wanted to like just always wanted to do, and I finally got the right team when we combined forces to make this story. So it's just easier for me this way. We have more control over the story this way as well. So then that way, by the time it's all done and we've got 4 issues out, if we decide that maybe later on we want to do like a hardcover for the Kickstarter, we can. And we can still take it to a publisher later. It's just that with me, it's a thing of I know my audience per se, and I'm still continuing to try to grow and build my audience. And I feel more comfortable just going about it this route, single issue, per single issue, because it's a 4-issue miniseries overall. So as 1 story arc, that's good for us, and it's just easier for me. It keeps it affordable, and I know it's something that I can easily fulfill per issue, and also making sure that if you missed out the first time, you can still get the first issue the second time around. And if you missed it the first 2 times, when we do the third, you'll still be able to get the first and second issues too, and so forth and so forth. It's just easier this way for me, and I feel that I have a better chance of hitting my goal if I do it this way.
No, that's an incredibly, I think, smart way to approach this, because it having, I know any Kickstarter I back, one of the first things I look at is the goal, because if it's this super big lofty goal and I'm like, oh, I don't really know, and it's like, oh, it's this magnum opus graphic novel that's still being drawn and things like that, it's kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to. It's not a lack of trust in the creator so much. It's just like you have a lot against you right now.
Yeah.
And unless you're considered like a sure thing, and even though there's been creators who are considered industry professionals who still haven't delivered on things in Kickstarter, but we're not here to talk about that. But it's an incredibly smart thing to do, and I'm really enticed by the idea of like, well, if you missed the first one, second one's around, you can still get the first issue, and that's already done. And this continue, that cycles. So by the time the 4th issue of this is kickstarted, if someone hasn't jumped on yet, it's like, well, of course of course they're going to finish this. It's going to be, they have the first 3 done already. Why are they not going to finish this?
Oh yeah, definitely. And so it just makes things easy. It makes things easier for everybody, because no matter what, there's always going to be a chance. There's always going to be a chance to always bring in a new backer every single time.
And my one experience, running a Kickstarter that failed miserably was, despite having it done, despite having all that, it was still a big ask, because I was going for the big hardcover. I was going for, a premium package. And, that's just, like you said, far less relevant for me, but like people don't know me. So, getting, we had a really successful go about, and we kind of stalled like halfway. We reached about, I think we're just over 8,000 or about $8,000. And we were trying to get 15 because we were trying to do a hardcover and all that business. And that just, tanked. And then afterwards, talking to people about it, a lot of the people I knew that backed it were like, oh, I didn't realize it was a hardcover. So it's like, man, if we just went with a soft cover, we would have been funded. So it's managing those expectations, right? It's so, tackling single issues is just, an incredibly smart move. And I'm really glad that Kickstarter's kind of, or the community around Kickstarter has kind of warmed up to that idea of supporting these single issues, because, you're far from the first person I know that, or the only person I know that is taking advantage of that. And it's awesome because, if I can't, I'd rather spend my money supporting people I know and creators I know doing things that they're passionate about. And like you said, a story you've been wanting to tell for years. I've at my stage in life, I feel like, I feel more inclined to do that than wanting to go buy Batman or whatever. And that's not a dig on Batman or whatever. It's just, I'm glad I have this outlet for that, or this opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And it's supporting you directly. And
Yes. Okay.
before we move on from this, I just want to mention that the funding, or the Kickstarter for issue 2, ends on November 29th. You guys, as of today, which is the 11th, and this will be posted on, I believe, the 13th. So you have about 2 weeks to from listening to this to go and back it. You guys are over the halfway mark. You're cruising along. There's tons of great reward tiers, and especially just you can still get the first issue and the second issue, and it feels like I just read the first issue, so it's not even like this huge delay in between.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, this is kind of what you call a no-brainer for me.
Oh, well, I hope so. I hope so. And also, to make it easy for anybody, if you want to check out the Kickstarter, you can go to theignitioncomic.com. You do that, it will shoot you straight to the Kickstarter page, or you can just go to Kickstarter, type the word ignition, and you should see it in the search.
And
headers.
it is tagged as one of Kickstarter's projects they love, so that is a nice tag to have. And again, whenever you're listening to this, check the date, and if it's before the 29th, get your booty over to Kickstarter.
And I would appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
You will not be disappointed. In fact, you will be, very, very pleasantly, I guess, surprised is not the right word, but you're gonna dig it. I'm not a racing guy. I'm not a Fast and Furious guy. I'm not a transporter movie guy. It's not that I actively dislike those things. Things just don't appeal to me. But I backed the first Ignition because of you. And I know if Shawn's involved, it's going to be well done. You always put a ton of heart and passion into whatever you're doing, and you get people who share that and can convey that on the page. And I really enjoyed it. Like I'm the guy when you see when a car chase comes on the screen on a movie or something, I'm like, oh, all right. And but I'm digging this racing comic, or this transporter style comic, and I think for me that's as much as a glowing review as I can go. It's like you're taking a concept that I'm like on, and I'm like, I want more, give me more. So
Oh yeah, like it's always been my thing when like making comics or writing or whatever, collaborating. I want to continue to do stuff that, like, I personally always just want to challenge myself and challenge the creative team and see things that I haven't. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yes, and like tons of stories have been told before in different ways, but like something like Ignition, you have a black woman who is the lead character, so it's kind of like, you could kind of say it's like, like a black woman, meets a black woman led vehicle driving a vehicle per se, no pun intended. It's just like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool if we got to see, like, let's see, who could I think of? Like Lupita Nyong'o as the transporter, you know what I mean? Or Naomi Harris as the transporter, or in Drive, or like the lead character in Drive.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So like that's what I was thinking of when when I was coming up with the idea for Ignition, and then reaching out to Jenna Lynn Wright and Kelly Guillory, and I was like, okay, well, what do y'all think about this idea. They're like, oh no, this is really cool. We can definitely team up on this and make a dope story. And I just felt positive about it. Like every single project, I know people say, well, every single project you do, of course you're going to feel good about it. I don't think that's always the case. I think sometimes you feel good about something in the beginning, and when you finish, sometimes you may not feel the same. But like this project is just very special to me. And I'm just glad that like I've been able and we've been able to share that with everyone with the first issue. And I'm just hoping that the second issue Kickstarter is successful, because like I want to see this completed. Um, and I feel that it will. I feel that we will get there and we will hit our goals. And and then sometime next year we'll do the Kickstarter for issue 3, and then a few months down the line the Kickstarter for issue 4. And I think the other reason why I did doing it this way is because also it's giving more people opportunities, not just to get the book, but also it's giving artists opportunities. I've been able to hire a lot of women, and possibly non-binary, because I don't want to misgender anyone. Folk to do covers for Ignition. And so, like, say for instance, for issue 2, we've got covers by Kelly Guillory, who is the series artist. Covers by Elizabeth Bales, who's done work for kind of the Comixology original Virtually Yours with writer Jeremy Holt. Up and coming artist Tiana Conyers, up and coming artist Tristina Bowling, Megan Wong, who's done work for Dark Horse, and like the issue 1 reprint, the second printing is a new cover, but featuring the artwork of Rory DeRain, aka Rory Comics. So being able to give people opportunities, give people opportunities is like a really big deal for me. I just want to help, and I want to get people on. And if this helps them, if this gets them a step further, cool. You know what I mean? And they got paid for it. Cool. And also it's a thing of, with like this Kickstarter and with issue 1, every cover that's made does not get reprinted. So what's made for the Kickstarter is made for the Kickstarter. I may have a couple of copies sitting like in my bin that I can take to a convention whenever we get back to that form of normalcy, which isn't coming anytime soon. But the thing is that all these covers are exclusively printed for the Kickstarter, and they'll never be reprinted, ever. So you get something special, and you get something special like that's just for you. And it's never going to be reprinted. It's never, so it's not it's not going to see the light of day again. The book will, but it's not going to have that cover you have.
No, I'm really glad you brought up getting all those different covers and hiring all those different people, because that's another really awesome thing that I've noticed with this kind of revitalization of Kickstarter as a publishing jump off for people. And these covers that that you have from these creators, they're all awesome. Especially the Elizabeth Beals one, that looks like that's the movie poster right there. I think it's and they're all really cool, and they're all different. And that is also something that knowing you, like, that's something I've always admired, is like you're always pushing for your collaborators and for the people you work with. And that really does speak to your passion about making books, making comics. And I really enjoyed seeing your direction you've been going in the past few years, from Cash and Carrie, from The Fire Within to Ignition, and there's been stuff in between and stuff before that. But just seeing that kind of like those 3 jump out the most to me as like something that's it feels like Shawn had this in his gut and he had to do this, and it just shows, and it's very palpable when you're reading the story. And that's a very difficult thing for a creator to do. Speaking from experience, speaking from just having read a ton of comics, someone can be very passionate and into the concept and wanting to tell the story, but then the execution doesn't convey it or doesn't get through. And kind of what you're speaking to, like you're not always happy with the end product of what you make. And I think with especially those 3 projects, it definitely seems like you are. It definitely seems like you've fully realized what was within you and you were able to find the right people and collaborate and just get that whole feeling and that whole effort all cohesive and put onto the page. And that's really awesome.
Oh, thank you. It's always been a thing for me, like when making stuff. This is also about relationships, and like, yeah, there are some things that, like, for some folks, this is just a work for hire
Yeah.
gig, you know what I mean? But I always want people, and I know that, and I know it's not like this every single time, but I always want people that I work with to understand that, like, this is a comfortable working environment. If there's an issue, let's talk about it. You know, I want people to have a good time, because if they're not having a good time, what's the
Yeah.
point? That's how I've always felt. I just want people to be able to have a good time in what they're creating, because that way, they get the best of themselves. They put the best of themselves on
Hmm.
that page, and we all walk away happy. And so, and like, that's what we get with Ignition. Like, everybody is just enthused and hype about making this book, and it shows, with every single page. From the story to the art to the coloring, to all that stuff, the covers, like you said, the Elizabeth Bales cover does look like a movie poster cover, because we talked about it. I was like, yo, let's do a poster, like, let's do a cover that kind of looks like, like an alternative version of a Drive
Hmm.
poster. Like, Tristina Bowling's cover, that's her play on a Baby Driver illustrated poster. And so, like, I love it when people do stuff like I love when people do stuff like that, and they were more than talented to pull it off, and they had a great time making those covers. So, I love just being able to share that, with folks that, are able to contribute to the Kickstarter. So it's just cool, and like, they're happy, I'm happy, and like I said, not every project is going to be, roses and chocolate per se, but for the most part, I try my best to make sure that everybody walks away saying, I had a good experience with this.
That's awesome. And that's a great mindset to have. And, it's I've had projects where I've had less than favorable experiences, and I've had projects where, I've, absolutely adored what I was doing and was sad to see it end. So, and those are the projects that, and those are the creators and collaborators that really stick with you, and you want to do more stuff with them. And that's just, like you said, people know you, but they don't know you yet. And I think,
Right.
you know, if the future holds tight, I think people are going to know Shawn Pryor. So I want to ask you the three questions of the podcast:
Okay.
comics, coffee, and metal. What are you digging on these days?
Okay. For comics, actually, I've actually been reading a couple of things. Let me pull up my little Gumroad page that I got, because like, they're right there, because they are held in my via my email. So let me pull that up real quick, and I will tell you. There we go. And yep, I'm not a robot. Good old reCAPTCHA. Thank you. So, there is a collection of comics from Michael Sweater. He does, or they do a comic called Please Keep Warm. And it's like one of I really enjoyed this collection. It's fantastic. It's funny. It's anthropomorphic characters. And basically, the long and short of it is, it says, "Please Keep Warm" is a comic about friendship, overcoming depression, finding your place in the world, and also sometimes black metal. And it's funny. It's not for kids, but it has that art style that makes you feel that it's for kids, and I've
Okay.
enjoyed that immensely. Also, there is someone named Amy Stoddard who did a Kickstarter last year, and for a mini comic, and it's called Diets a Bear. And once again, it's anthropomorphic characters. but it's basically a comic about about body image and like some people are self-conscious about their bodies, and like and I get that way a lot. And this comic is it's it's cute, it's funny, it's honest, and I really enjoyed reading it a lot. I've read it a number of times, and I'm glad I invested in Amy Stoddard's Kickstarter because it was well worth it. A couple other things that I've read there's an artist by the name of Eric J. Schuster who has 3 volumes of a book called Godzilla Suit, and I'm reading volume 3 right now. And so it's just like this really cool history of of Godzilla suits, and like the people, that's the easiest way for me to describe it. And
No, that sounds awesome.
I've enjoyed reading that as well. And so as a matter of fact, let me just make sure I give a proper description. Yep, the it's like a zine, and it's an illustrated examination
Okay.
of Godzilla's changing appearance throughout his films across the decades. And so it's really cool. And Eric Schuster, who's on Twitter, he does like all these cool like kaiju drawings all the time, and he posts them on Twitter. He's really awesome. So I've been reading that, and then there's an artist by the name of Peyroro, Peroroh, and they've done a few mini comics, and one was called Take a Step Back, which is a comic about like relationships, awkwardness, and struggling to express your feelings. And they've recently done a mini comic called or regular comic called Our Coven, which is about 2 childhood friends reconnecting at a party, and they come to terms with with who they are per se. So that's what I've been reading lately, and I've enjoyed all of those comics a lot. As far as coffee, the pandemic has changed my attitude on coffee as a whole. It has changed my attitude on coffee forever. You we got a coffee shop down the street, North Lime Donuts and Coffee, or North Lime Coffee and Donuts, and I get their caramel mocha latte, um, decaf, not decaf, half calf. Yeah, yep, caramel mocha latte, half calf with whipped cream. Use whole milk, and it is amazing. It is life changing. Like coffee is wonderful. Like I've had some other ones from there too, like Honey Badger and Brown Bear, and they even have like this one, like I think they call it like the El Diablo, which is kind of chocolatey, but like it has like cayenne pepper in it, and
Yeah, I've heard of
so
some.
it's got like a little bit of a bite to it. And I'm just like, well, if I want to open up my sinuses this morning, let's go. And so like there's that, but like the caramel mocha has really changed my life, and I also didn't know that coffee was a diuretic. Um,
Oh.
so so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's also life changing. But anyway, so like that's what I've been doing with coffee. Like literally, seriously, like maybe before this year, maybe I had coffee once every couple of months. But since the pandemic, minimum, minimum 3 times a week, if not more. And so yeah, I'm good with it. Like I love it. You know what? A lot of ways I'm kind of glad I waited so long, because now I enjoy it even. I just enjoy it. Like it's just like, oh, happy place, coffee, happy place.
That's good. We could all use our happy places these days,
Yes.
wherever we can find them.
And as far as metal goes, um, it's not metal per se, but like it's more hip hop based. But like Busta Rhymes just came out with a new album. It's his first album since I want to say 2014, and it's the Extinction Level Event Part Two. It's 22 tracks. Could it should have been about 14, but it's 22 tracks, and I let it slide because when Busta Rhymes was at his most dominant from like 1996 to like 2006, or like 98 to 2008. Either way, like in between that time, he had a decade where nobody could
Yeah.
touch him. Period. No one. And during that era, that was the era that was heavy of that's when we had a lot of cats dropping double CDs and double LPs,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because that was just the thing to do. And it was also a quicker way to go platinum. It was a quicker way to
Hmm.
also go gold. Not saying that all these double albums were trash, because they were not. There were a lot of great double albums, and there were a lot of trash double albums too. And let us be real with that. But Busta Rhymes never had a double CD or double album. But now he had him, and so like I'll let that slide because he never had one. So now he has one. Some amazing tracks on there, some really dope samples. It's like I said, but it does run a long time if you're not paying attention. Like it's a smooth ride. But if you are paying attention, you're really focusing and just like intently, strongly listening to it. It's just like, all right, bro, like I gotta go. Like I gotta go to work. Can you wrap this up? You know? But like seriously, if it was like,
No,
oh,
there's
go ahead.
no. That's you know as I mentioned before with other guests, like we don't have to talk about metal here. I want to know what people are enjoying
Yeah.
musically and what's getting them pumped up and all that. But how you've just described Busta Rhymes is pretty much how most people describe Metallica. Like they had the period where they were untouchable,
Yeah.
and then now it's like they drop something. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be like a handful of great tracks, and then the rest is going to be like. But if you listen to you just put the CD on and you're doing stuff or whatever, it's fine.
Right.
But yeah, if you sit down and listen, it's like, is this one still going? Like, so no, that's great to see, and yeah, it's I think as artists get on in years, we can't expect them to be all fire all the time, right?
Right.
Not everything's going to be their best, and the escalation ends at some point. I think for some artists, they may get back to that level where they were before. There's a lot of older heavy thrash bands
Hmm.
that were real big in the late 80s that now, being 50-plus-year-old men, are putting out some of the best records of their
Yeah.
lives. But they've had entire decades of material that doesn't quite measure up to what they did when they're younger. And now, now as they're approaching senior citizen level, they've tapped into that level where they were before.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess you're not going to count out Busta at
Oh
all.
no.
Um, and I'm not a huge hip hop or fan or anything like that.
Mhm.
It's not something I
Right.
dislike. I mean, growing up, you know, growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was around.
Oh yeah.
Like there's always something. But the depth of my knowledge, kind of like like I if I just sit and name one artist I knew the most of, and that would be like Run DMC, and that's how long ago.
Oh yeah.
So
Well, but that's
um
also another thing too. It's like it's also the way that a lot of us grew up with hip hop. Hip hop was new when we were young. That was, it was
yeah
a new musical genre. So like our generation is kind of like, if you were born like somewhere like in the late 70s, late 70s, early 80s, like you were knee deep like in the birth of hip hop. And so,
yeah
because like, rock had existed. Rock music had existed,
yeah
R&B music, jazz, like, metal, punk, ska, reggae. Like there was so much music that existed before the birth of hip hop. And so it's still relatively new, even though it's been here for almost 50 years. It's
hmm
still new. It's still new. So and like every few years it's a brand new sound. And it's also the
yeah
type of music that's also affected by community, because now, and it's a sidebar, but now you got like, tons of black kids that grew up in the suburbs or grew up in, better fiscal areas, and like, or they were surrounded by white kids in the same fiscal class. And so like their rhymes are completely different than, say, for instance, like, like a Chuck, rhymes are different than a Chuck D. or Busta Rhymes or a Q-Tip or or a Nas or or a Ludacris. Like it all varies. Like it all varies. Like Little Uzi Vert is going to be completely different than LL Cool J. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like it's I mean, and I know that's a really loose comparison because like LL hasn't had a solid album since 2006. So, but anyway, I digress. I digress.
Speaking of growing up in that era and all that, as I am to metal, my older brother, who's 1 year older than me,
Mm-hmm.
was to hip hop and rap.
Mm-hmm.
So that was always around. He was huge KRS One guy.
Yes.
Like that was his guy. But he always had all the stuff, in the neighborhood. Like I was not the only person who liked metal, but of my age group, I was the only person who liked metal, and it was until high school anyway. But it was always around. So there was always some sort of absorption of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have an appreciation of it when it is done very well. And so, based on what you're saying, you know what? I think I'll give that new Busta Rhymes one a shot.
If you do, let me send you like the track list to tell you which tracks to skip.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Because I do remember back in the day. I don't know if it was the first Extinction Level album he did, but there's a few tracks. I mean, I still what was it? The track he did where he sampled Knight Rider?
Oh yeah, that was part of Extinction Level event. It was Turn It Up / Fire It Up, and that was the remix, so it wasn't on the album.
Yeah.
You had to go buy the CD maxi single. So yeah.
Yeah. So I remember really liking that one, and and also like in the mid to late 90s, Busta was all on MTV, so like I'm very familiar with him.
Yes.
But if I could flip it a little bit for you, I think I could recommend some metal for you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That might scratch, because I know you're not a narrow-minded guy. So I know you enjoy all kinds of stuff. So I think, and anyone who listens to the podcast regularly is going to be sick of me mentioning this band because I mention them a lot. But there's a band called Amaranth.
Okay.
And I'll send you a link to it.
Awesome.
But they are, I think, Danish. But it's in English. But it's a heavy metal band, but it's a female singer, a male singer, and then a male screamer guy. But the male screamer guy, he's really into like hip hop, and like, so he has a lot of stuff. His screaming is kind of like done in a rap style almost. And it's really interesting to hear because I don't know how someone can like do that with their voice that fast sometimes. Especially they got a new song where it's probably one of the fastest like screaming vocals I've ever heard with the rasp and all that. But I'll send you a link to that one. It might not be impressive to you.
Oh no.
But for
I want to hear
for
this.
me listening to him, like, because it reminded me of when Twista did that track with he sampled Ozzy.
Yes.
Crazy Train. It reminded me of that a lot.
Oh, okay.
But this band, they use a lot of electronic, and like, I'm not familiar with it, but based on what comments I've read and all that, they use a lot of like trap type beats.
Okay.
And stuff that's incorporated with the music and all that. So it's very interesting, but I think there might be enough there to do, because there's tons of melody, there's tons of, it's not, because I know screaming vocals kind of like can turn a lot of people off. They turned me off for many, many years, and I've, but this is done in a way where it's not guttural. It's just like a real raspy voice type of situation. But yeah, I'm gonna send you a link to that. Hopefully you dig on that.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else music wise that's doing it for you?
I would say another thing. As a matter of fact, let me pull this up on my phone right now, and I could tell you. Give me 1 second.
While you're doing that, I just want to interject also that I think it was really awesome that your comics picks were all stuff that was like on Gumroad, which is independent artists, independent creators.
Yes.
So, if that speaks to, again, to you walking the walk with, supporting people who are doing things they're passionate about, because let's be honest, as much as I love the idea,
Uh-huh.
someone doing 3 volumes of zines about the intricacies of the Godzilla suits,
Yes.
that's not a moneymaker. But that is definitely something up my alley, and definitely a few people I know's alley. So I'm definitely going to be investigating that once we're done
Oh,
here.
oh yeah, definitely. Like it's worth it. Like I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it a lot. And the other thing I've been listening to is just some old stuff. Like there used to be this like R&B slash funk band like in the 70s up until like the early 90s. They stopped making like new music around that time, but they were called Lakeside. They were based out of Dayton, Ohio. I used to live in the greater Cincinnati area, so I was familiar with that area. And they had like a bunch of like hits back in the 70s and 80s. And so like I just wanted to kind of get that sound back in my ear. And
Mm-hmm.
perfect example, like if you ever heard Coolio's Fantastic Voyage, his first ever hit,
Yeah.
he sampled Lakeside. That's where he got it from.
Okay.
So like I really wanted to get that sound back in my ear. So I was like, yeah, let me pull up the greatest hits, and I really enjoyed that. And also been enjoying another old school R&B funk soul band, Cameo. And because those that used to be like one of my favorite bands like in the 80s. And although now that I'm older, some of their music plays different for me because of all the innuendo. And
Okay.
a perfect example is they had a song called Candy. And like so like the hook would, because like they would say tastes like candy, and then like then the lead singer Larry Blackman would say his like verse, and then they would say it tastes like candy. Well, now that I'm older, and somebody put this on Twitter like about a month ago, they're like, yeah, that was a song about cocaine, right? And I was like, no, 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 don't play with me like that. And they're like, no, no, no. He's like, and he just kept tweeting about it. He's like, think about it. He said, if you watch the music video, these dudes is high as hell, and like, and because like it's just 3 brothers on just bouncing back and forth doing things, singing the song. And he said, but every time they mention candy, it's cocaine, and a white lady walks by. And I'm like, and now the song plays completely different for me now. I laugh about it, but I still enjoy it because the groove on that song is just dope. And they got like on the bridge, they got a nice guitar solo during the bridge. So and that was the cool thing about like Cameo. Cameo also like infused a lot of rock into their R&B. Yeah, they can give you a dope slow jam and they can give you a dope up tempo cut, but they they did have that rock influence as well in their music. So yeah, so that's some of the stuff I've been listening to.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that term you're using. Like, get that sound back in my ear. That's definitely a feeling I've had with stuff that you've now put into perfectly succinct words.
Mhm. Oh yeah, thank you.
And there's I know we've discussed this a few just like a few years ago, but for a while you were, making music yourself, correct?
Yeah. Like I just like playing with sounds and beats, and so like I had bought like all these different like loop samples, and
Mm-hmm.
I had software that allowed me to play with loops and stretch them out and change pitches and all this other stuff. And so like when I was doing comics independently, when I first started, way back when, like back in like 2008, 2009, I said, well, you know what? Let's make this like a multimedia type thing. I was like, so here's the comic.
Yeah.
Okay, well here's the soundtrack that goes with the comic, and we'll have songs that fit the moods of these pages or and stuff like that. So they're so like songs had actual moods and themes with them, and so I was like, no, 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 this sound does not fit this comic. It can't go with this, but it can go with this comic over here. And so I still have some of that original music somewhere on MP3. And I had, because I remember every time somebody would buy like a copy of, I had a buddy cop comic called Mercury and the Murd, and and it was kind of like an ode to like 70s and 80s cop shows with a little bit of a sitcom touch to it. And I said, well, if you get this little, trade paperback, well, here's a CD, here's a soundtrack, here's a CD, because this was still MP3s is still new to people. Like in 2007, not everybody was trying to push everything onto the iPod because they still had the CD player in their cars. So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, take the CD, it's free. He was like, oh, cool. So yeah, but yeah, I think I had made like 12 songs for Mercury and the Murd, and like 7 songs for Agents of Cult, a couple songs for XO1 and the Rock Solid Steel Bots, and some like other songs that I never put out. So, but I had a lot of fun doing that.
Is that something you've ever thought about getting back into, or is it just, when you're gonna have the time
If I had the time, if I
situation?
had the time, I would try to make some music right now. It's just there's just no time there,
Yeah,
and I would love to. The time just isn't there, and that's just one of the things like I have to be honest with myself about. And so, because like, yeah, there's a box of loops and beats in my closet right now. And I'm just like, well, we can just go download Program X and we can get these loops out. I'm like, no,
yeah.
we got like 3 deadlines we
Well,
got to hit. We got a Kickstarter. We got a Kickstarter that's running. We got to plan, we got
yeah.
to plan stuff and like get pitches together to send to your agent. Like Shawn, like you have a fiance, you have 2 dogs. Like, bro, you don't have time for this. You don't have time for this. So like, you gotta wait.
Well, whenever we finally sit down and get our thing together, we're definitely doing something
Okay. Okay.
because it's well established on this podcast with every guest that making music for comics is something that I am utterly fascinated by and cannot avoid doing myself.
Word.
So just whenever someone else has done it, I'm really interested in that just because it seems like such a great melding of things because it's about setting the mood. It's about just creating that extra bit of experience with a comic that you're not trying to make it more like a movie.
Mhm.
You're just trying to you're trying to put the reader in the headspace that you're kind of in via music when you're making it so they can kind of follow along with what you're intending
Right.
more so than just on their own, which you know isn't necessarily like the right way to do it, but it's certainly a more interesting way to me
Yeah. Oh yeah.
for that. So
Oh yeah. Like I said, that's the cool thing about making comics. Like there's no one way to do this. There's all different things you can add to it. And they're all like it's not just this is the way we do it, this is the way it's always supposed to be. And I'm like, no, comics is about, taking chances, being experimentative, experimenting per se, experimenting, taking chances, and just like, like why, like sorry, now I'm all tongue tied again, but like give yourself the opportunity to like explore the medium and and try something that possibly has never been done before. um like I said, there's no single way to tell a story, and that's the cool thing about comics. Comics is an everyday reminder that there are so many different ways to tell a story, and also provides supporting material that goes with it.
exactly. So earlier today, I took to Twitter and I asked, see if anyone had any questions for you, and we've had a couple of responses.
Oh,
So let's get to
word.
those. Yes, we have 2 great questions. First one is from John Westhoff at Anti Drummer. How do you decide when a project is for Kickstarter? Do you have a certain number of months you pitch it before you self-publish?
I like with me and Kickstarter, like I just put it out there and like I don't worry about the pitching. I really don't. Like, yeah, I know like professionally, like my career somewhat changed now that I actually have representation. And that representation can sometimes can now better open doors I could never open. Doesn't mean I'm getting that work over there or that like somebody's automatically going to take a book. But like I just want to make the book. I don't worry about pitching. I really don't. I'm like, well, let's make the book and see what happens. Now, will there be things that I pitch like, to my agent later? Probably so. But like when I have an idea for a Kickstarter, there's no pitching. It's let's make this book. Let's put the plan together. How are we going to do this? All right, let's execute. Like that's how I normally do it. Like it's just a feeling that I got in my gut. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, like Ignition needs to be a Kickstarter. Let's get people interested. Let's go. And that's really it. Like, no, like when it comes to pitching, like when it comes to pitching, like I don't when it comes to that stuff, I don't worry about it. I'm like, no, this is going to be a Kickstarter. Like, I have pitched other things before, but when I do like when I know when I just like I just know when that project's going to be a Kickstarter, and if I know that, I'm not worried about pitching it at all. I'll do the project, and then after that, let's see where it goes. Let's see where it goes. If somebody picks it up, great. If not, I can just sell it solo. It's no harm, no foul.
All right. I think that's a great answer. I also think it's a great mindset. Get the book done, see what happens.
Yes.
Just get it, because nothing's gonna happen unless the book is done. So
yes.
The next question is from awesome writer James Asmus. What thoughts help you keep going on the days you just don't feel good about what's coming out of your work?
That I know in my life, in like the 13 almost 14 years I've done this, I've written worse. And I know no matter what I've written today was probably better than yesterday or yesteryear. And that there's always another day tomorrow to just write some more. Like sometimes there are times where if your body doesn't have it and your soul doesn't have it and your mind doesn't have it, it's okay to walk away. But there are days where I have been writing, I'm like, you know what, I really don't feel good about this, but I'm going to get this out because I need to. And I get it out, and then I tell myself, well, you know what, let's look at it tomorrow. When we come back tomorrow, let's look at it and let's see what we liked and what we didn't like. Because sometimes, self-doubt can play with us. And self-doubt plays with me a lot. And so like I'll have those days where I'm like, man, this is whack. This is not it. Nobody's gonna like it. And I'm like, no, we're gonna finish it. We're gonna finish it. Then I'll come back the next morning. I'm like, what am I talking about? Like this first half was really good. Okay, and then there's a problem right here, but we can easily fix that. Okay, well, let's fix that. Okay, and let's keep it going. And so the thing is that not every day is going to be good. It's not like it's humanly impossible. And that's something that I'm still teaching myself, because like we try to teach ourselves to be perfect, and we are all flawed. And no creative form is perfect. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sometimes we'll have that day where we can just like bang out X amount of pages and like, damn, I was on today. And that's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. You know what I mean? But like not every day is gonna be like that. And so like that's another thing too. When I have those days where I don't feel good about what's coming out of my work, I remember that 2 days before I was the shit and could nobody fuck with me. And I'm like, you know what? We're gonna get this back. Let's just go ahead and push through this. And tomorrow we will fix we're gonna fix what the actual problems are, because not all of it is a problem. And and that's just how we have to look at it, because we're not perfect. We're not perfect. We have to accept that there's going to be days where we're not feeling the work, but we also come back and realize we can fix it and make it better, or it wasn't that bad after all. We were just in our own heads.
That's another fantastic answer. Having known you these past few years, and both of our lives have taken ups and downs, and we've messaged each other and stuff like that, and that always seems to be, even at real low points, you always seem to be driven to propel forward, even when you have every right not to. every uh every excuse, every perfectly valid reason not to. You take that next step forward, and that is something I truly do admire about you. And it's no surprise that that's how you approach your work. There is a lot of hesitation, a lot of self-doubt, with creating it. It's no surprise to anybody who does. Um, and I do think it's incredibly important to recognize those days when you are king shit, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When you wrote those pages and you're like, no one's got nothing on me, or if you're an artist, if you're like, man, the small victories that artists tend to like, man, I nailed that face, like that shadow, spot on. Like, no, Toth will give me Alex Toth will give me a high five, So it's really trying to recognize those moments, and that is something you can extrapolate out to life, is recognizing those moments where you're, where things went good and things were good, and then just keeping that in mind when things aren't, and then moving forward, because if they were good yesterday or 2 days ago, there's no reason why tomorrow's not going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's the thing, man. You're right.
And that's with my own personal art struggles, that is something I have to like try to take to heart, is just like, I'm certainly better than I was 5 years ago. I just remembering, whatever I draw today, even if it's not successful in my eyes, there's things I'm doing that I wasn't able to do before.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it was like, man, this is like 80% where I want it, 6 months ago it would have been 50%. Like, so, and that's huge, and that's something to keep in mind, and to celebrate when it does happen, because it's not a perfect medium. And to bring up the often mentioned term, finished is better than perfect.
That's right.
So, and that's I've had the opportunity to some artists younger than me, and asking me for like critiques or things like that, or questions and stuff, and it's like, first, I don't know why you're asking me, but second, finish things, get them done. Get the book done, because nothing happens unless it's done, right?
That's right.
Even if taking away the concept of a publisher or kickstarting it, like, no one's going to read it unless it's done. You're not going to get better unless you finish it.
That's right. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So that's just the.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It got into my head before I lose it. Like, a lot of times, man, we don't allow ourselves to shine. We don't we don't as a as this one pastor used to say at a church I used to go to when I was a kid. He's like, you got to give yourself the glory. And I take that and twist into completely something else. What I mean by that is that we got to allow ourselves to believe that we are that good. And the only way we can get good is if we keep going. And yes, there are times where we do have to stop, that we do need to take breaks, that we do need to breathe, that we do need to eat, that we do need to step away from the computer, that we need to take a walk, we need to go outside, wear your mask. Anyway, but like, sometimes, like, we don't give ourselves enough credit, and be like, no, I am that damn talented. No, I am that damn good. Yeah, I keep getting better every single day. And the reason why is because I work on it. And also, like, you may not be able to work on your skill and craft every single day. But, if it's every other day, that's fine. If it's every 2 days, that's fine. If it's 5 minutes one day, 2 hours the next day, that's fine. Like, every step gets you closer to where you want to be. And yes, there are going to be times where, like, you have a setback. Setback's just another road to a bigger comeback. And I know I've had that a number of times. Like, the comics business, like, for as long as I've been in it, has not been too kind to me personally. Like, I've had minor success, but I've had better success outside of comics, writing, kids prose and graphic novels for
Hmm.
book publishers. And so like, that's what I mean. Like, for every bumpy road, for every setback, there's always another way. And sometimes, like, I try to tell people, like, I love comics, but the thing is that if it doesn't love you back, you can still make them, you can still do them, but find alternative paths. Doesn't mean that you quit comics. It does not mean that you quit comics. You find alternative paths. My path as of late, I do Kickstarter. Like I said, I have representation now, and I write I write prose novels for book companies. Kids book. Kids prose, kids sports prose, kids prose. I write children's books, storybooks. I've written historical graphic novels. I'm writing a scary story graphic novel right now. And so on top of the stuff I'm doing right now, and so like I'm happy about that. Like, I don't worry anymore about the fact that, like, you know, I ain't writing Power Rangers for Boom Studios. You know what I mean? Like, that shit used to eat at my soul. Like, I've like seriously, like, it used to like legitimately eat at my soul, because I'm like, no, I'm damn good enough to do that. I know the history of the franchise. I'm like, we can make fire right now. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Y'all just hiring cast that have written for TV and cast from LA, and another popular cats. And I'm just like, that's the game. Do I hate it? Yeah, it sucks. But it's like, it was eating me alive, because like I would just look at these books and I'm like, no, I could do this. I could do this better than they can. And I'm just like, let it go. And I'm like, we can do something else. And like a piece of that, like, was last year when I did a Power Rangers comic for fun with George Campoday. So I was like, yo, let's go have some fun with this, George. He was like, bet. And we put it out. And it was the bomb. Had a blast making that, had a lot of fun. And it was like a piece of letting go. And and coming to peace and coming to terms with that. And who knows, one day it may happen. Maybe I might work with Hasbro one day. Who knows? But like, I had to let that go, and like find alternatives to come to peace. But it doesn't mean that, like, my career creating stuff is over. Shit, it's just begun. It's just begun. And so that's how I have to like look at this. And that's why I try to tell people, it's like, sometimes the path isn't to the big two or the big three or the big four. Sometimes the path could lead you somewhere that you had no idea was going to take you, and that place is fucking awesome. And so don't deny yourself those opportunities if they come. you know like, try to keep open eyes, open ears, and open heart. Protect yourself and be smart, but don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Diversify as much as you can.
That's very well said. And, to speak to, the idea of you writing for Power Rangers and all that, that franchise isn't going anywhere. And, it's it's certainly relatable to what you're saying, like having to let go of what can be perceived as like the pinnacle of, achieving your dream, right?
Right.
Working on a franchise you love and adore, and then you have to let that go because for whatever reason, it's whatever business reasons, it's not happening. But like you said, you went and you made your comic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, and you got to tell a story you wanted to tell without any interference.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the fun and the joy of doing. I don't want to. I'll call it a fan comic, but it's some people can view that as dismissive.
Oh, that don't bother me.
The work and
It don't
effort.
bother me at all.
Okay. So doing the fan comic though, you got to tell the story you wanted to tell with the person you wanted to tell it with, and you're extremely stoked about it. And that just, that probably is going to do a lot more for you.
Oh yeah.
than even because for all you know, one day Hasbro calls you up and they say, okay, we want you to write this, but then they basically handcuff you to a bunch of stuff you're not excited about, you're not passionate about. And it's like, well, the monkey's paw, right?
Yes,
you know?
yes, yes.
So, that short you did, it reminded me of the stuff that Daniel Warren Johnson does.
Hmm.
He did that Star Wars one, and then he did a Star Trek one, and he did a Pacific Rim one, and those are probably stories he wouldn't, well, at the time, wouldn't have gotten any chance to tell, through the property proper.
Oh yeah.
But he did it, and it created a lot of buzz for him in it. And I know for a fact he immensely enjoyed doing them. And when you do work you enjoy, that just lifts you up even more.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of speaks to what you've been saying this whole time. You got to give yourself the glory a little bit, right?
That's right. You got to. You got to. And like I said, I just feel better. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's not, life ain't perfect. And there's still some things that I would like to have, and maybe one day I'll have them, maybe one, or maybe not. But until then, like I like where I'm at right now, though. You know what I mean? Out here grinding, out here doing these Kickstarters, out here trying to make sure Ignition issue 2 reaches $4,000, and hitting these deadlines and coming up with new ideas and concepts, and collaborating with others, and just trying to work on me, and at the same time learning what happiness actually is, what the meaning of success actually means for me, because everybody's meaning of success is different. And and being able to just pay bills and have a roof over my head and take care of the ones I love. And and at the end of the day, I'm going to be okay. And even amidst all this stuff that's outside of our window right now, and all the craziness, or part of my house, like all the wildness, and and all the bad stuff, I'm gonna be okay, and I'm gonna make sure my family and the ones close to me that I love are gonna be okay too. We gonna make it.
You definitely are, because you can be bitter, or you can do the work. And Shawn Pryor, my friend, you do the work.
Thank you, my friend.
And I sincerely hope that all your work pays off. The quality is there, the passion is there. I hope it reaches the people it needs to reach, so that you can just continue to do what you got to do and not stress so much about Kickstarters and things like that, and things get a little bit easier for you to do the things you can do.
Oh, thank you.
So.
Oh, thank you. And it will get there one day. Like I said, I just can't worry about it, yo. I just can't. Like, it is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm okay.
But and that's huge too.
Yeah.
Because knowing some people who might not be in that space, and knowing myself who could get into that space, where it's not okay, it's huge. It's huge to do, and it's incredibly rewarding to make a book. It's incredibly rewarding to make a book that is telling something you're passionate about, and it's incredibly rewarding to make that book and have it be received well.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. So, Shawn, it's been an absolute blast talking to you. If you want to give everybody where they can find you on social media and the internet, and just to follow this great guy. I mean, he's worth a follow on any social media platform, people. So get some Pryor in your life if you don't already.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on your show. If you want to find me on the internet, y'all, like the 2 best places, Twitter, that is at Shawn, SHAWN, the letter R, Shawn R Pryor, PRYOR, at Shawn R Pryor on Twitter. On Instagram, it's at the Shawn P Show. I do have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/Shawn Pryor. And like I do all types of stuff there, whether it be blog posts, videos, music, art, like digital art, and all different types, like all different types of stuff, comics, podcasting when I actually have time. And I thought I'd have more time, but I never have enough time. But all types of things there. Also, if you want to check out the Kickstarter for Ignition, you can go to theignitioncomic.com. That'll take you straight to the Kickstarter page. Or you can go to kickstarter.com and type ignition in the search header, and you can find it that way. And if you missed out on issue 1, that's quite all right. In this Kickstarter for issue 2, you can also get issue 1. So, so you can get caught up real quick. So, but Don, thank you for this wonderful conversation. Thank you for having me on the show. It means a lot to me. And, I see you out here, man. I see you playing the guitar. I see you out here doing this art. And like, hey, man, like we've both come a long way. I remember when I first like hollered at you at the shows at Fort Wayne back in the day.
Appleseed,
at
yeah.
Appleseed, and like seeing you doing your thing there, and like and you're growing your family. You got a beautiful family, and you're growing every day, not just as an individual, not just as an artist, but you're just growing, period. And I'm proud of you. I am. I'm proud of you. So just man, just keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right path, and I'm proud of you, and I love you.
Shawn, I'm proud of you, and I love you too, man. You're a huge positive influence, and again, people listening, you need to get you some Shawn Pryor in your life, man. Like, it's ups and downs. Like, it's good to have someone like Shawn in your circle, in your periphery, wherever he's going to be. Just have him around.
Oh, thank you.
And it was my absolute honor to have you on the show. And it's not going to be the only time. So we'll hopefully get a follow up, see if I've gotten you to any metal.
Okay.
Or if I've gotten into any more hip hop.
That sounds good.
We'll have to do a follow up. But again, thank you again, Shawn.
Oh, you're welcome, Don.